You are listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg, and today I'm joined by my co-host Leon. Let's go! Hi guys, welcome to the show. It's episode number 41. We've been gone quite a while, actually. You've had to wait an extra week. So, here we are. Way too long, yeah. Today I'm joined by just Leon.
Hello.
And I have returned from my holiday. I've been on holiday for 2 weeks. And the previous episode to this was released in my absence. And then there's been a week in between because I've had a huge massive, huge stack of comics to catch up on. And obviously I've got to read something before I can talk to you guys about it, right? So we have a fair few comics to get through today. And yeah, what have you been up to these past 3 weeks, Leon?
Who knows, man? Who knows? It's been a mix of survival, eating, socializing. I can't remember what the last movie I saw in the cinema was. I think last I spoke about on the cast was The Incredibles.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it's been moons. It feels like it's been moons since you went and came back, let alone...
well, I've only been back a week, but yeah.
Even then.
Yeah.
Wait, has it been a whole week?
Yeah, a week and 3 days.
God.
Yeah.
Where does the time go?
I know. It does feel like eons since we've put a cast out. I know it's not. I know it's literally only been 3 weeks since the last release, but it does feel like eons. Like the extra week actually feels like a month.
Feels like 3 years.
Yeah, I know. It feels like forever since I've sat here and spoke to you guys.
Back for the wilderness, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of wilderness, while I was on holiday, because I've got like a sort of an archive of older comics in digital form that I've sort of like purchased and things, and stuff that I haven't necessarily got. I mean, I've got some Swamp Thing as books, but stuff I haven't necessarily got as books, which I can take on holiday with me on my tablet, because I don't like taking my books on holiday because I'm super OCD and everything I have is like dust free and plastic, and
the thing is,
really protective of my comics.
You wouldn't even... It's not even worrying about what happens on the other side.
Yeah.
It's airport security.
Yeah.
If they don't steal it, they'll rough it up.
I know. I just look at the way suitcases are treated and I just wince, imagining what might happen. It's like, no, not my comics. So no, I don't take my books with me. I have digital copies for that event, which I guess is like one of the upsides of digital, the fact that you can take your comics collection with you without risking its safety. So I've been reading the Alan Moore Swamp Thing comics while I was on holiday, and this is like the Alan Moore run that tends to get all the love and attention, critically lauded and everything else. And yeah, it 100% deserves everything everyone says about it. This is not the first time I've read these comics. These comics are like favourites of mine. This is like, I love Swamp Thing, so this is probably where a lot of my Swamp Thing love comes from. And there's some really great issues like in this run. Like, this run is just, if you want to read horror comics, and you know, this is where you go, man. This is great stuff. Like, this is absolute gold, this run. You've got like other characters turning up from the DC mythos. There's a comic where there's a whole book where the demon Etrigan turns up and crosses paths with Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing and the demon kind of work together to take down a common foe. You've got this really, really like unsettling autopsy comic where we sort of like see a lesser DC villain brought back and made into this kind of like super vicious monster. The Floronic Man.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, he kind of like represents he's like, in this he's kind of like an evil Swamp Thing, but he's like one of the villains in the DC world that kind of has dominion over plants or has plant-based powers. And there's this whole comic where Swamp Thing is supposedly dead, and they are performing an autopsy on his frozen body at the request of the head of some kind of like science corporation that wants to use whatever they find for some purpose or other, maybe selling the research for weapons. I can't remember the exacts, but I know that he employs the Floronic Man to do the autopsy. And the bit that sticks with me about this book is this like autopsy where he's like pulling Swamp Thing apart and describing the parts, and this is where Swamp Thing is reinvented as, rather than being Alec Holland, Swamp Thing is Alec Holland's consciousness transferred into a plant body. Because like up until that point, the assumption had been in when you read a Swamp Thing comic that it's Alec Holland inside, well, Alec Holland's body fused with the swamp inside some kind of like swamp shell, and he still has human functions. But when they do this autopsy, it's like, no, this is a plant thinking it's a human. It has lungs, but it doesn't need the lungs. You know, it's weird, and it's so cool, and it's like,
that sounds freaky.
It is. It's so freaky, and I sat there and read it one dark night while I was on holiday, and it was brilliant.
Well, that's the thing, like, it's on my Alan Moore list of shame.
The things you've never read.
Yeah, I've always heard good things. I've heard it's amongst his best work, but I've just never got around to reading it.
I mean, the art in this run is fantastic as well. Like, everything about this run of comics is absolutely brilliant. I recommend it to anyone. They are all available digitally. I've got them digitally. They're available collected into volumes as well. I think there's 6 volumes. But yeah, I fully recommend those books. Saga of the Swamp Thing. Yeah, that's the title of Saga of the Swamp Thing. But yeah, no, they are brilliant, and they are like 100% worth your time and money. So yeah, get on those. That was my holiday reading. Since I came back, there's been a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I've been part of that has been running for 2 years, and we made it to the end, which is I guess that doesn't sound as big as it actually is, but it's not something that a lot of people manage to achieve. You know, if you ever look at various pages on the internet, there's a section of Reddit called RPG Horror Stories, and you know, there's all these other places where it's like the assumption or the norm for a Dungeons and Dragons campaign is you start, you roll characters, everyone gets really invested, and then it just fizzles out after a while for one reason or another, and nobody ever gets to the end of like people complete modules, people complete pre-written D&D stuff, but nobody, it's like a rare thing for somebody to get to the end of something that someone else has written. So I've been part of this campaign as a player, and one of my other friends had written this whole original campaign where it was kind of present day. So Dungeons and Dragons, but with present day technology. So we were walking around with mobile phones and things like that, and it was this whole like industrial espionage thing going on, and it was brilliant. Like, the whole story start to finish was great. And it had been running for 2 years, and we made it to the end, and we beat the final boss. And, like, you know, it took everything we had. Like, we died, and we were resurrected by our cleric character and things like that, it was really cool. And it just something that I just wanted to mention, because I just felt like it was an achievement to actually make it to the end of a Dungeons & Dragons campaign.
It sounds like it. I never realised that was the case with like own written ones, that people don't often finish them.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing. Like from a lot of stuff I hear. I mean, there's probably people out there that probably turn up and probably hold their hand up now and say, "Oh, well, you know, I've finished pre-written campaigns. I've written campaigns that people have finished." And yeah, it's because you've got a good group of people. You have to have a good group of people to do that. You have to have a committed group of people. Otherwise, you just never get to the end. But yeah, to make it to the end felt great. And it's like, you know, that feeling you get when, I mean, playing this game, I've probably spent 100 hours in character at least. So it's akin to playing a JRPG, you know?
Yeah.
Because like we can have like whole sessions on a Saturday, and sessions can last 6 hours. And like sometimes you can do 6 hours and you can make massive progress. Sometimes you can do 6 hours and spend 4 of those 6 hours arguing about how you're going to infiltrate Building X.
So is that what delays it in general?
I don't think it's as much. It's to do with character. Like, what do you mean by delaying it? As in,
I mean more in the sense of, is that what will balloon the time from saying, oh, this is likely a 20-hour campaign, and then it ending up being like a 150-hour campaign?
Yeah, it's making your own side quests, going off on tangents, things like that. Because the dungeon master might write something and expect you to take something one way, but then you as a group of characters might decide to go to the other direction, and it's the push and pull. So the DM can't railroad you too much. So they have to then think on their feet, and they have to change how things work so that it still fits what they've got written, but also gives you the freedom as the character to enjoy the world they've put you in.
Yeah.
And that can balloon the time when you start going off on tangents and branching off into different directions and things like that. Like we spent a whole lot of time on a plane called the Feywild, which wasn't originally part of the story. We weren't meant to spend so much time there, but because we showed an interest in it, we had several sessions where we were just in the Feywild. And that was the DM being a really good DM and just giving us that because we wanted it, because we showed such an interest in it,
Yeah.
And it was really good of him to do that, and he really was a spot-on DM. I mean, I've tried to DM in my time. I say try because I've not come close to what this guy has managed to do. It was brilliant. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to running a game now after this for the same group, which will be based around the Ghostbusters. So it's going to be in the same sort of setting, the modern day D&D setting that this guy had. And I'm going to continue with everything as his campaign left it. So, but what we're going to be is we're going to be a group of Ghostbusters in the D&D world. So D&D Ghostbusters. We're called the Spectre Quashers. And this is my thing now. So I've managed to rework a few spells and stuff so that we can have like ghost busting equipment that uses traditional spells, so it doesn't break the rules and things like that. So it's gonna be quite cool, and we'll see how that goes.
This sounds like the very Greg-ass thing ever.
Yeah, it is. It's so Greg. It's the most Greg thing I've ever done. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. I'm looking forward to running it. I really am. And yeah, I guess the last big thing that I have to mention is the return of the Fantastic Four. I don't know if you have taken a look at this yet, Leon?
I have not.
Right, so what we have here is Fantastic Four #1. It's back. Yes, Fantastic Four, August the 8th, I think it was, that the Fantastic Four returned, which was last NCBD.
So for like listeners who have no idea, where the hell did the Fantastic Four go?
It happened about 3 years ago, and the book was cancelled after the events of, I think it was the Secret Wars, and Sue and Reed were presumed dead. So it was during the 2015 Secret Wars storyline that we sort of lost the Fantastic Four. They were split. Reed and Sue and their children were presumed dead. Johnny and Ben carried on, and we've had the Marvel 2-in-1 book, which has been the adventures of Johnny and Ben trying to reunite with Sue and Reed, and it was really quite sort of a melancholy thing when you were reading it, because Ben was keeping the truth from Johnny to try and give him hope and everything else, and they're losing their powers because when the Fantastic Four are separated, it turns out that their powers weaken.
Oh,
and they were returning to normal, and Ben and Johnny, Ben has been left a gadget, the multisect it's called, which allows them to travel between different places in the multiverse. It was created by Reed Richards, and it was left so that when he was gone, whoever of his family was left could continue exploring the multiverse, and he left it to Ben Grimm. And Ben has it, and Ben knows that Sue and Reed are dead. In Marvel 2-in-1, Ben knows that Sue and Reed are dead, and he hasn't told Johnny they're dead. He just told Johnny they're lost in the multiverse. And he turns up with this multi-sect, and he's like, hey, why don't we, go on one last adventure and try and find them? So things happen. They go on an adventure. They're accompanied by a new character. This new character's name is Rachna Cole, and she seems to specialise in superpowers and helping to return powers to people or give people powers. So they team up with her, and they team up with Doctor Doom as well, who is now some kind of like begrudging anti-hero type character because he's wearing an Iron Man suit and he's trying to be good. So he's like reluctant hero type thing, like he doesn't want to be a good person, but he reluctantly does the right thing from time to time now.
They made him Vegeta.
Kind of. Like, he's worse than Vegeta though. He's a bit more reluctant than Vegeta is, but yeah, they made him Vegeta. So he is actually, if you think about it, he's the Vegeta to Reed Richards' Goku, I guess. Because they constantly, but it's intellect instead of strength. Yeah. So he helps them as well now, and they go on this adventure across the multiverse, and things happen, and their adventure in Marvel 2-in-1 hasn't exactly come to a proper ending yet, but we've already had Fantastic Four #1, where they're back in the world as we know it, back in the original Earth that they came from, and Reed and Sue are out there and seem to have found a way back, which is where we're left at the end of Fantastic Four #1. And yeah, it's been 3 years since we've seen the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four are like the flagship Marvel family, so it's nice to see them back where they belong. It's nice to see them back in print and to have more adventures with all four of them. Yeah, and I'm just happy they're back, and it's cool to see them back. It's cool to see these classic Kirby characters getting the love they deserve again, which, yeah, it's been long overdue. And yeah, it's the world's greatest comic magazine.
So do you know how long it's meant to run?
I don't. I don't know if it's going to be a limited series. I certainly hope not. I'd love it to carry on. I'd love to, love a lot of people to get in on the ground floor with the Fantastic Four again, because this is what this will be. Because it's like a total reset type thing, I reckon. So yeah, It's going to be cool. Yeah, and that's about it for my 3 weeks between casts. So that covers everything, and it's time we got on to the comics that we have read in preparation for this one to review. So a lot of these things dropped while I was on holiday. In fact, yeah, they all kind of dropped while I was on holiday. The first one I shall talk about will be X-Men Grand Design. So this is now the second part of Ed Piskor's kind of masterwork. So this is X-Men Grand Design Second Genesis #1. So this now picks up where the previous Grand Design comics that we've talked about on the cast left off, and it's a continuation of the amazing work that this man is doing. Like, this one man condensing down, I don't know how many years of comics into, like these volumes, and managing to keep it all there, managing to tie it all together, all the inconsistencies and everything else, and things that are revealed later in the X-Men line. He's managing to put it all together and make sure that it all makes sense and everything, and edit this down into these. I mean, granted, they're larger than normal comics, but still, like, these volumes that he's producing are absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I can't fault the work, to be honest. And this one, Second Genesis, deals with... It starts where the X-Men comics went on to a sort of hiatus It's where it was cancelled in 1970 with issue 66 and then comes back again. It was reprints until number 93. So up to 1975, X-Men was just reprints. And then it came back again as all new, all different X-Men, and that's what this deals with at the beginning of the book. And we've also got the Dark Phoenix saga in here as well. And in this book alone, we've got 10 years of X-Men history plus extra parts from later reveals condensed chronologically and all through the eyes of the Watcher. I love the style of this book and this kind of quasi-retro aesthetic that it has going on. We've talked about this previously before. This is Ed Piskor's masterwork, and I think when the whole thing's finished, it will be something that, I'm sure I've said this before, but it will be something that can take pride of place on your shelf for sure. Nice hardback omnibus edition of this, I reckon. What do you think, Leon?
Yeah, definitely agree and concur with your thoughts and feelings on it. It's like I was saying in the episode where we reviewed the first part, it's remarkable how this absolute powerhouse, this more than human, this uncanny X-Man himself is able to do this and to keep it so authentic and to respect the source material so well that you can tell there's not only a love but a deep understanding of what the original writers and artists were doing with their particular stories, and I guess editors as well. And by taking this approach, he's able to seed things that come later a lot more organically than how they ended up happening in the comics, where it was all retcons.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, you could argue this whole thing is a retcon, but it's really nice, tidy, condensed history, which is very good for people who are either not aware at all or have absorbed a lot of things via osmosis. So you might have heard about Dark Phoenix, you might have heard about the Hellfire Club, Emma Frost.
M-Cran Crystal.
Yeah.
The Macron. M-Cran or Macron, how do you say it?
I would say Macron, but now it sounds like the French Prime Minister.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people were exposed to X-Men, if not via comics. I think the biggest way was the cartoon.
Mm.
And the way how watching cartoons are when you're a kid is that you're going to... I mean, that show was ahead of its time in the way that it was heavily Saga-focused, so it paid a lot of attention to narrative arcs. And instead of, just adapting a comic per episode, instead they adapted arcs per season. And despite the limitations of being a children's cartoon program, I think they did an alright, decent job at covering the broad strokes of some of these great comic book arcs.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, you would have tuned in, you might have seen episodes 1, 4, 7, 8, and missed a lot of bits in between and not really understood. But instead you just have a whole idea of I remember there was this woman of weird hair, I think she was a Shia or whatever, and you don't fully know. And I think what this and the previous book do are confidently bring this together in a way that it doesn't just feel like the new school sort of taking a sort of douchebaggy stance of in the future we're way more enlightened and we get more things about science and society and blah blah, but you don't really get that tone. Instead you get someone who has the the luck of having like hindsight and is able to see the whole breadth of the work and then be able to find ways to efficiently get the main points and of each of these stories and arcs and present them in a way that is quite appealing.
Yeah, I mean what I love about this is the fact it's through the eyes of the watcher, and one of the best things about this particular book, this particular one, Second Genesis #1, is the way that he deals with the hiatus at the start of the book, like the team's period of inactivity. I thought that was brilliant how he did that, and then how he dealt with the Phoenix like rebuilding everything after it was all destroyed by the Omicron crystal. Something that probably in the original comics is very messy and confusing.
Yeah, like, it's done quite elegantly here, and it still kicks quite still has quite a big impact in the task that they all need to go through for that to happen.
Yeah,
but it's way less confusing and muddy.
Yeah, like he takes. I'm looking forward to what he does with latter X-Men books, because he takes a lot of things that there are points where when you're reading comics and you get so deep in that you can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah,
and you probably need something like this as a guide, as a timeline, as a chronicling of everything. I wish we could have these, not just for X-Men, but for like most comic characters. Actually, I think that would be a really good idea. It would be nice.
It would be. It really would be.
Yeah, because it's a really good way. I mean, it's a good way for people to get in on the ground floor, and it's a really good way for, like you said, people who have been fans of the cartoon and things to be able to tie things together. And it's just a
refresher as well.
Yeah. It's just a really great piece of work, and you can tell there's a lot of love there, like you said. And it's Ed Pisca's mutant power seems to be his ability to summarize and explain such a sprawling saga effectively, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, because I think like this is possible dicey territory for me, because I'm a big Chris Claremont fan, and the stuff covered in here covers a lot of his arcs.
Oh no, I love Claremont. I'm not saying I don't like Claremont.
Yeah, but it's like it's dicey territory, because it's like, oh no, you could like lose a lot of the heart and soul by doing it in this method, but I don't think that's the case. And I think what this book's good for, or at least in how I respond to it, is that it's a nice primer and refresher, but then it also makes me want to go back and read things like the Dark Phoenix saga. So I think it works twofold, and a lot of that is down to Pisca's reverence of the past and what's come before, but not being slavishly devoted to it.
Yeah, and that is what's really, really cool about the way that he's done things. The fact that, like he was saying, he shows respect for what has come before, and he clearly grew up reading these books. Like, there's no other way to explain the way that he's managed to keep the soul in there and do what he's done. Like, because he's managed to keep it intact, and at the same time condense it down into something amazing like this that obviously gives you like a primer and a summary of what's happened. And yeah, I find myself eyeing my shelf, looking at my Dark Phoenix trade and things like that after reading it. I'm not gonna lie, definitely. I love some of the panel work in this book, especially as well. Like, as I mentioned before, the point where the universe is destroyed and then recreated, the panel work there, when he lays that out, is brilliant. And we get that whole blank page with just the word "Bink" in the middle of it or whatever, and that's just fantastic. That's like one of my favourite points in the comic. That and the beginning where he sort of waves away the period of inactivity. Yeah, blink and a blank page. I'm just flicking through it now as I'm talking, and
I do love after that bink, and when they have the plan of what to do, and that shot of them all holding hands is so good.
You know how people say listening to vinyl, you get like a warmer sound and everything else?
Yeah.
So I guess listening to vinyl would be like reading old comics, because reading old comics, you get this feel of a whole other age from it, and it's just something special and something that preserves, I guess, the thoughts and feelings of that time, of that period like in time. And this is like listening. It's like listening to vinyl, a vinyl of something that you already have on CD, and then listening to it again for the very first time on vinyl and realizing, shit, I missed all that. You know,
there's an extra like texture to it.
Yeah,
like an analog type feel.
Yeah, definitely. It's really amazing piece of work.
It's funny though, because we shouldn't be surprised about this, because this is the man who condensed 15 years of hip-hop history into 4 volumes, so it shouldn't be surprising that he would try to go bigger and further by condensing like 50 years of history of the X-Men.
He's human WinZip. That's what he is.
I will say, if you're a person who, I mean, by the nature of this being like The Watcher, if you're a person who hates boxes of exposition and not characters talking, then this might not be the comic for you, because by nature of how it's done, you've got a lot of boxes of exposition,
a ton of narration. But you know what? I only dislike that when it gets in the way of the comic itself. With this, the whole point of this book is it is being narrated by the Watcher. So the whole point of this is the narration. But if we were to have a book where there was plenty of dialogue, and it was things happening in the moment rather than things being recalled by a character. So what we're looking at here is memories. We're in past tense. If we had a book that was displaying things that are supposed to be present and current and happening, and there's a ton of narration in the background as well as what's actually happening in the panel. So someone's telling me what's happening in the panel, I can see what's happening in the panel, and then people in the panel are talking about what's happening as it's happening. And that's just over custarding the pudding, I guess, and that's when it starts to get irritating.
Yeah, I would agree, and that's why I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah,
in this.
That's where the difference is. So I think,
I think in a way, it serves the story better doing this way, because I think it would be you'd get whiplash going this fast through these storylines without the context of someone reading back on this. So I think it works really well.
Exactly. So that is X-Men Grand Design, Second Genesis #1, and that is entirely by Ed Piskor. Someone get him a scholarship at Xavier's. So we're moving on from there to something that I've picked up, which you're not going to be surprised when you hear the title of this. This is called Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road. Now, what this is the sequel to Bebop and Rocksteady Destroy Everything, which is where Bebop and Rocksteady go back in. They go on a time travel adventure, and it's like Bill and Ted from hell. It's the only way to describe it. They destroy everything. Things end up out of timelines and in places where they don't belong, and it's just they leave a mess, and they wind up in Central America with a dinosaur, a pet dinosaur, and that's where we leave them. But it's a pet dinosaur they don't want. They don't necessarily like this dinosaur. It's just there because they kind of brought it back with them by accident. Who
doesn't want a pet dinosaur?
Bebop and Rocksteady, man. They are literally the embodiment of chaos and anarchy. Like, they don't care. They're not necessarily malicious on purpose all the time. They're just too stupid to know otherwise sometimes. You kind of feel sorry for them. But yeah, they end up with this dinosaur, and kind of they just know how to be bad. Like, they've got no... I don't know how to describe their lack of... it's so difficult, because they're not necessarily bad people. They just do bad things because they don't think things through, and they don't ever regret anything either, you know?
Are you saying they've got no chill?
Yeah. Absolutely no chill. No guilt switch. Nothing. You know, they are constantly doing exactly what they want to do, whatever they want to do. They don't... Occasionally they start to stop and think, like, wait, we've been bad guys for so long. What if we just tried being good? You know, like they do in these comics. So this is dealing with their road trip trying to get back to New York. So they're in Central America, and they're travelling up from Central America, trying to make their way back to New York. In the first book, on their way back up, they cause a lot of trouble. They lock heads with another mutant called Wingnut. Two mutants, in fact. Two mutants as one. Wingnut and Screwloose. Who's a mutant batfly. He's a mutant bat. Yeah. So initially thought he's a mutant, but he's actually an alien. So what basically what happened is, in Bebop and Rocksteady Destroy Everything, in issue 3 of that, Bebop and Rocksteady go back to the year 2012, and they destroy the Stock Gem building, and they end up freeing Wingnut and Screwloose in the process, and those guys wind up in the present day, in the middle of Central America, like Mexico type area, and they're just causing trouble by feeding on livestock and people. They refer to anything that contains blood as a food bag, because Wingnut is a vampire bat, and Screwloose is supposedly a batfly, but is like attached to Wingnut's head. So they're kind of like symbiotic. And this book is genius because it starts off with those two driving a convertible, Bebop and Rocksteady, and then all of a sudden they slam the brakes and the convertible tips over, and it's because Bebop has noticed that Rocksteady's ear has turned back human.
What?
Yeah. So his ear has turned back human because they're losing their powers. They're losing their mutantness, I guess. The mutagen's wearing off. They're becoming human again. So they notice the ear, and Rocksteady, not being one to ever think things through, just takes out his combat knife and lops his ear off and throws it into the desert, and the dinosaur chases it and eats it, and that's where this book opens. So that sets the precedent for it. And this book, because they're travelling through like a desert area, this book's kind of got this whole like fear and loathing thing about it, because they're in backcountry, right? Coming up against Wingnut. So it's pretty awesome the way this all plays out, and by the end of this book they're looking more and more human. In book 2, which we're on now, they are dealing with the fact that they, through the course of the book, become entirely human, and they decide that... So in the first book they decide they're going to try and be heroes, and it doesn't work out too well. They're also being hunted by the EPF, the Earth Protection Force, at the same time. So they've got like the military on them, or this like secret, like 4 levels above military unit thing on them. In this second book, they're trying to be normal people and hold down jobs, which doesn't work out because they've turned back into normal people. Still hunted by the Earth Protection Force, who still think they're mutants. And I'm just waiting for what issue 3 holds, really, because this thing is just insane.
It sounds so.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just brilliant start to finish. The art is fun and punchy, and energetic, and it's really energetic in its panel layouts as well. Like it's fast, it's furious. We've got like a lot of use of onomatopoeia and hand drawn words and things like that in panels, and it's just beautiful. A lot of thick, fast black lines, punchy colours, and yeah, it's start to finish. It's just adrenaline. Like everything about it is just adrenaline, and it's great for an action comic, and it's such a fun comic to read. Like especially because of that artwork. And I might as well mention that the next comic on our list that we're going to talk about is Leviathan, and the artist from Leviathan is actually the cover artist for this, and has done cover art for previous TMNT sort of events. It's Nick Patara. He's done work for TMNT IDW Comics before, so he's doing cover work on this, on Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road. He's also done covers for the Dimension X event, which we talked about here, and he's done covers for Bebop and Rocksteady Destroy Everything.
I thought his art looked familiar from when you've spoken about these and linked the artwork. I was thinking, this looks so familiar.
Yeah, and these
all make sense.
These are all linked together covers as well. So these Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road covers, like you lay them out side by side, and they all link up to make one big picture.
Oh, cool!
Which is kind of cool. Yeah. So yeah, it's just, this book is just absolutely insane, and it's another TMNT book, and it's brilliant. And I just love the way that they come to terms with the drop in power, and they're like trying to oh, that didn't used to hurt, but it hurts now, kind of thing. You know, like my arm didn't used to break like that, but I guess now it does. You know, when they're fighting and stuff, and it's just great because they're just complete idiots. They're just like total boneheads, and I love it. So yeah, that is Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road. List of credits for this one. We have story by Ben Bates and Dustin Weaver, script by Dustin Weaver, art by Ben Bates, colours by Brittany Peer, letters by Sean Lee, editor Bobby Curnow, and publisher Ted Adams. And that is for Bebop and Rocksteady number 2. For number 1, yeah, it's entirely the same team. I'm just double checking that I make sure I get everything right. The cover artist in both cases that I have is Nick Patara, which is the cover A. There are alternate covers available. You've got covers by Ben Bates, by Corey Smith and Brittany Peer, and there are Kevin Eastman covers as well. But I want the interconnecting covers because they're just so much cooler. Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road number 2 has alternate covers by Dustin Weaver and Ulysses Farinas. So yeah, Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road. Another great event for my buddy Mutant Boneheads. My 2 favourites. I guess I would like to hang out with Bebop and Rocksteady one day if they were real. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. I think they're like a more like a version of Mikey with less chill. Like they just really do not care like about anything.
You guys would be getting arrested.
Yeah, exactly. You would get arrested if you hung out with those guys for sure. They're like, they wake up in the morning and they're already like on it completely, and it's just not good. So yeah, that's Bebop and Rocksteady. And the last comic on our list, I think, Leon, is another one we both read. And this is Leviathan, which I've already mentioned because guess what? The artist for this book, Nick Patara, is the cover artist from Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road, which is what we already mentioned. So I was already on board with this book, knowing that this guy was on art because his art's fantastic on these covers. He's one of these guys that packs in a lot of detail.
Definitely.
He's one of these guys that has shades of James Stocco and Jeff Darrow about his art and his style, with the way he packs in a lot of detail and a lot of what I call grunge and crust. You know, like when you see these drawings, these beautiful pieces of comic art where there's like lots of little intricate pieces piled up, like a big massive tower of scrap metal or something, you know, that kind of stuff. Like these 3 guys are like the kings of this kind of artwork, I guess. And yeah, this is what this is what I love about this comic, about Leviathan. It's the fact that it's just so full of detail, and it's hyper detailed. It's in your face, and it's just a giant monster comic that absolutely pulls no punches. That's the best way to describe it. In simple terms, a guy throws a party, realizes that he's running out of booze, goes on a booze run. While he's gone, people get bored at his party. Some metalhead goth weirdo who invited himself to the party pulls out some kind of Ouija board thing and summons the Leviathan, this big red kaiju beast thing that decides it just goes on a rampage and just tears the city apart. And it's brilliant. It's just a giant monster comic that's just full of adrenaline, and yeah, I love it. It's just absolutely pulls no punches, and it's got the double page spread to end all double page spreads, which I'll come to in a moment because I want to ask you, Leon, what you thought of this first.
Yeah, I really like this. I think this is a thing that I'm happy I went off your recommendation of just the name and didn't read up anything about it, because I think if you told me, oh, it's a comic about like kaiju or whatever, not that I don't love that, but I would have thought like there's a lot of giant monster-y media. Is this going to be any different? But going into it blind and then spending a lot of time with the lead character and his friend, and seeing like the connection between him and his girlfriend, I think that was a great setup. And as you're saying, like I feel like Nick Pitara's art complements John Layman's words and plotting so well.
Yeah,
and I think all that build up works really well in sort of layering these characters in a small amount of pages, because one, they're designed so cool where it's like it's slightly exaggerated, and everything about all the character design and all the streets and to the kaiju itself, as you mentioned before, is so goddamn detailed. But then like Nick Pitara's like lines are just so good, and they like just bring this tangible texture to all of it. And like you say, they add a layer of crust to it. But I think the thing that stops it being sort of grim is Michael Garland's colors, that I think are just very vibrant, and they like pop and contrast each other in a very compelling way, where it's in ways like a cartoon, and not a cartoon in the traditional sense of like an animation on TV, but like a cartoon in terms of like caricature and like a comedic tinge to the look and feel. But it all feels very consistent, and it nails its tone really well. Like when someone mentions a character called Goth Jimmy, and then we meet Goth Jimmy. Goth Jimmy is what you expect Goth Jimmy to be.
When you hear Goth Jimmy, you see Goth Jimmy. Yeah.
When you hear it, you smell him.
Yeah.
You know that scumbag. And I think it's nailed so well.
I think I just want to go back and say there's nothing scumbag about goths. It's just Goth Jimmy is a scumbag.
Yeah, not goths. No, Goth Jimmy. Goth Jimmy is a scumbag.
Yeah, he is. And
I think whether it be just setups, or like location shots or like images, like them standing outside the closed shop on the way trying to get beer, to the shots of like the portal or gateway unleashing the kaiju, or when we get that splash of the kaiju ripping out, it's like it's really gorgeous to look at, but also you're in this sort of hyper reality that I really like. So I was quite bought in, and then I was like, yeah, I'm here for this goofiness. And then we meet the president.
Yes. That was one of the things that that was one of the reasons I recommended it to you as well. Those pages with the president. And it's just it just absolutely pulls no punches. And I love the way that this book deals with the president. This caricature of President Trump, and they seem to spend like an entire, it's like they spend a whole page just sort of like, I don't know, there's a couple of panels and they give him like the largest panel on the page as well, just to show his, when they show you his bedroom when he's sleeping with his teddy bear wearing the MAGA hat, and like, yeah, and you see the portrait of him in the background, like naked with abs and stuff, and just like, it's just his ego just thrown up onto a page, like his, you know, his president's like rancid ego just thrown up onto a page, and it's just perfect the way they deal with it. I love it. There's
lots of little details in the background. I mean, throughout the book there are, but in those panels in particular, there's lots of little
details, lots of little jokes, lots of little snide stabs at the president, and it's perfect. I love it. I love the fact there's going to be giant robots involved. I love the fact that if you go back through the book as well, like some of the details in the background of some of the pages, you mentioned when they were standing outside the shop. If you have a look on one of the panels below that, when you see one of the posters, it's Bebop chugging a glass of wine.
See, even I missed that one.
Yeah, so there's like just little things all over it. And it's, like you said, it's this hyper reality where everything is caricaturized and brought out. Everything's wearing its personality on its sleeve, and it's perfect the way they do that. Like, absolutely brilliant. And some of these page layouts are fantastic as well. Like, some of these page layouts, the panels aren't even split by traditional panel borders. Like, the panels are split by the edge of the subject of the next panel, and I just think that's absolute genius. And like it gives you this like collage effect, but you can still follow it. You still know what's going on. You still know where to look first, and you still know where to look next. And everything's just, everything's just brilliant. And I love the fact that this kind of has like a sort of, like when they're calling it the apocalypse, it kind of has like a biblical edge to it as well. Because like this, there's this priest that's like kind of heavily involved in the story, and I think he's going to be in the next issue quite a bit.
Yeah.
But like the fact that like you've got Leviathan from the Bible, haven't you? And he seems to be equating this thing to Leviathan from the Bible, and he seems to be equating it to the end of the world. And when you look at the face of this thing, you know, when you look at its eyebrows, its eyeline in the top of its nose, it kind of looks like Donald Trump. You notice that? It's got that. It's got that about it. Yeah. And yeah, this book is just brilliant for that, and the colours and the detail involved in the artwork is just absolutely amazing. And these types of artists, these Nick Pitaras, these Jeff Darrows, these James Stockos of the world are perfectly suited to giant monster books. Definitely. And I love this book start to finish, like the expressions on people's faces, like the dumb slapstick expressions when stuff happens, when they get surprised, when they get hit, when it's just brilliant, all of it. And it's dialed up to 11, and it's just it's a big red kick in the teeth. It is a punk spirit fueled by adrenaline and stained with beer. That's what this comic has. A punk spirit fueled by adrenaline and stained with beer. And I love it. I love every moment of it. It's brilliant. And I want more.
I have one negative.
Yeah, go on.
Not to do with the actual book.
Yeah.
But when the book finishes, which is remarkably dark, which I love, the like the creators and authors addresses, it opens up with "What up, homies?" and it's like, man, you lose a point for that. But otherwise, it's a great issue.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's good otherwise, but yeah, it's great. It's a big red kick in the teeth. And I love it. So that is Leviathan #1. And we have... that was Leviathan, created by Lehman and Patara. Written and lettered by John Lehman. Art by Nick Patara. Colours by Michael Garland. So there you have it, your 3-man team. And everything about this is just absolutely fantastic. And that double-page spread, I could frame that and have that on my wall. That is just like such a beautiful work of art. I'm not going to... I don't know how to describe it. It is literally a scene of massive destruction, of this thing tearing the city apart, spitting fire, and just making a mess. And I love it. I love that picture. Yeah, Leviathan #1. So that brings us to the end of our list of comics this week. So we're going to move on to the pull list. Now, last time I tried something new where I didn't read everything on my pull list, and today I'm going to do that again, because my pull list is always far too big. So this week, just a couple of things I've noticed, new #1s that are coming, and some things that obviously I'm looking forward to that are on my pull list. So we'll kick off with the fact that August 15th sees the release of Ice Cream Man #6. Now, Ice Cream Man's kind of a darling of this podcast now, I guess. I can call it that, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And we've got, with this one, the tagline or the preview, the bit that you get is, it's called Strange Neapolitan. And you get, sometimes, without a word, your life splits into 3. Now, from what I've heard about this book, and this is what people tend to be saying about it, like the buzz on the internet with other review sites and things like that, they are calling this book the Sliding Doors. So the Ice Cream Man take on Sliding Doors, where we see like different ways a scenario could go. And it's an absolutely horrifying version of Sliding Doors, but it's got that kind of format about it, where we see a story from, that could have gone 3 different ways. We actually see it go 3 different ways in real time in the comic, which I'm really looking forward to. Sounds like quite a cool thing. Next thing on my list, we've got Batman #53, which is the continuation of the Mr. Freeze arc, which is Batman has brought in Mr. Freeze, and Bruce Wayne is doing jury duty at Mr. Freeze's trial, but is doubting his own abilities as Batman and is therefore being that one guy creating a hung jury.
Ooh.
And it's like 12 Angry Men meets Batman. And it's absolutely bloody brilliant. I recommend that one to you, Leon, actually. That's just... You don't need to have read previous to understand what's happening. There was a wedding about to happen. That's all you need to know. And it starts with Batman 51. So 51, 52 and 53. We've got Gravediggers Union #9. One of the other things I noticed that was coming out, we've got Analog #5. Analog's a great book. That's the book about people smuggling things on paper because you can't trust the internet anymore because everyone has access to everything after the great data leak. That's quite an interesting book. There's this book I came across called Crowded, which is released on Image Comics. Again, same as Ice Cream Man. I should probably mention the credits for Ice Cream Man as well. We've got the writer W. Maxwell Prince, colorist Chris O'Halloran, Martin Morazzo is the artist and cover artist, and we have a variant cover by Christian Ward. So back onto Crowded #1. The preview reads, series premiere, 10 minutes into the future, the world runs on an economy of job shares and apps, including Reaper, spelled REAPR, a crowdfunding platform to fund assassinations. Charlie Ellison leads a quiet, normal life until she's suddenly targeted by $1 million Reaper campaign. Hunted by all of Los Angeles, Charlie hires Vita, the lowest rated bodyguard on the Defend app, spelled DFEND. As the campaign picks up speed, they'll have to figure out who wants Charlie dead before the campaign's 30 days or their lives are over. From Eisner-nominated writer Christopher Sabila, Heartthrob, I Come Back, Harley Quinn, and Rose Stein and Ted Brandt of Captain Marvel and Raven the Pirate Princess, and Triona Farrell, Runaways, Met Cadet U, and Cardinal Ray, Bingo Love, and Rose. Comparison titles. If the near future implications of social media and technology in Saman and Corona's Number One with a Bullet had you on the edge of your seat, you'll love Crowded. So that's one to check out. And the last one that I had that was a new one that I picked out, which sounded interesting, is a new Brian Michael Bendis book. This book is called Pearl. And this is on Brian Michael Bendis' sort of like own creator-owned thing called Jinx World. So it's a new Jinx World book. I gather there hasn't been a Jinx World book for a while. I'm not kept up with this stuff. I'm not much of a Bendis doesn't feature in my my crosshairs an awful lot in recent times. But Pearl is the story of an exceptional tattoo artist and accidental assassin for one of those modern day San Francisco yakuza. She was born into one life, but another is calling to her. When Pearl accidentally meets one of her peers, her doppelganger from another clan, she starts to dream of a better life, but Pearl has a very special ability that keeps pulling her back into the violent world she's desperate to escape. Pearl is a major series launch from writer Brian Michael Bendis and artist Michael Gaydos that features their first brand new original character since Jessica Jones. Fans of the Jessica Jones comic and TV show will be thrilled and delighted by this bold new direction the creative team has taken. So that is writer Brian Michael Bendis, artist Michael Gaydos, and we've got variant cover by Alex Maliev. So that is Pearl. And that's my pull list. And that has been Ace Comicals number 41. You can find us at www.acecomicals.com. You can find us to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn and Castro. All links are available on our website. You can find us on Twitter under Ace Comicals. You can find me on Twitter under @Batto. That's BATTOU. You can ask us questions on Twitter. You can DM us. You can ask Ace Comicals questions on Twitter via the DMs. You can contact us at acecomicals@gmail.com if you want to write us an email. You can find us on Instagram under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Ko-fi if you want to buy us a coffee even, if you're so inclined. All proceeds will go to the running of the site and keeping us up so you can hear us. And you can find Leon under @LeonEverett on Twitter, where you can find him sort of retweeting and talking about video games and comics and such forth. So that has been Ace Comicals number 41. Thanks for listening. Ace Comicals, over and out.